There's a video that went around a few years back. A guy in rural Montana had raised a wolf from a pup, bottle-fed it, slept next to it, walked it off leash on his property. He filmed himself doing it. The wolf followed him like a shadow, sat when he sat, ate from his hand. The comment section was convinced they were watching proof that domestication is just a myth, that the wolf just needed love, that the line between that animal and your neighbor's Labrador is basically made up. The wolf put him in the ER 4 months later, not on camera. I'm not telling that story to be grim. I'm telling it because it's the cleanest example I've found of how badly most people misunderstand what dogs are, where they actually came from, and why the gap between a gray wolf and your golden retriever is simultaneously smaller than you think and completely impossible to close through affection. Start with the genetics, because people get this wrong constantly. Dogs and wolves share about 99.9% of their DNA. You'll see that number used to argue they're basically the same animal. It's a lazy reading. Humans and chimpanzees share 98.7% of their DNA, and nobody's putting a chimp in charge of airport security. Genetic proximity doesn't tell you anything meaningful about behavioral divergence. Dogs split from a now extinct wolf population somewhere between 15,000 and 40,000 years ago, and critically, not from any wolf species that's alive today. Modern gray wolves are not our dog's ancestors. They're more like cousins, sharing an ancestor that no longer exists. When someone tells you, your dog is basically a wolf, they're technically closer to correct than they realize, and completely missing the point at the same time. What happened between then and now is one of the stranger stories in biology. There was a Soviet geneticist named Dmitry Belyaev, working out of Novosibirsk in Siberia in the late 1950s. He wanted to understand domestication, how it actually worked mechanically, not just historically, so he ran an experiment on silver foxes. He took a wild fox population and selected for one single trait, tameness, not intelligence, not size, not coat color. Just which foxes were least afraid of humans. Within 10 generations, not centuries, 10 generations, the foxes started changing in ways nobody predicted. Floppy ears, spotted coats, curled tails, shorter snouts. They started barking. They started seeking eye contact. The physical signature of domestication started appearing automatically, attached to that single behavioral selection. Nobody chose those traits. They came along for the ride. That process has a name: neotony. Essentially, domesticated animals retain juvenile features into adulthood, physically and behaviorally. A dog is, in a very specific biological sense, a wolf that never fully grew up. The playfulness, the dependency, the constant desire for social contact, these are puppy behaviors that got locked in. A wolf pup at 8 weeks old plays and explores and looks for reassurance. A wolf at 2 years old does not. Your adult dog does. That's not a metaphor. That's literally what happened. Now here's the part that actually got me when I first read about it. Dogs evolved a muscle that wolves don't have. It's called the levator anguli oculi medialis, and it sits above the inner corner of the eye. When it contracts, it produces the expression dog owners describe as puppy eyes. That raised inner brow, slightly worried, slightly pleading look. Wolves anatomically cannot make that face. A team at Portsmouth University confirmed this in 2019. The muscle is present in dogs and absent in wolves, and it appears to have developed specifically for communication with humans. Your dog grew a facial muscle. For you. Over thousands of years of coevolution, dogs developed hardware to manipulate your emotional responses. Wolves didn't need to. Wolves had each other. This connects to something even stranger. If you hide food under one of 2 identical buckets, then point to the correct one, a dog will follow your point. Every time. Even a very young puppy with no training will look where you're pointing. Wolves raised identically, same hand-rearing, same human contact. Don't do this. They trust their nose over your gesture. Dogs look at human faces for information in a way wolves simply don't, and researchers think this isn't trained behavior. It's structural. Dogs are wired to read us. They've been selected for thousands of years to treat human social cues as more reliable than their own independent assessment. That's what separates them. Not just size, not just bite force. Though a wolf's jaw, built for crushing elk femurs, runs around 400 pounds per square inch, while most domestic dogs sit between 200 and 320, and the structure is different. The angle is different. The sustained grip capacity is different. The real separation is cognitive orientation. A wolf looks outward. A dog looks at you. Which brings me to wolfdogs, and I'm going to be blunt. The wolfdog market is almost entirely driven by people who want to own something that looks dangerous without understanding what they're actually doing. A wolf-dog hybrid sits in behavioral no man's land. It doesn't have a dog's full emotional orientation toward humans. It doesn't have a wolf's complete instinct suite either. What it has is unpredictability layered on top of 80 to 120 pounds of ambition and a bite that will cause serious damage if the animal decides something's wrong. They're surrendered to sanctuaries at catastrophic rates. I looked up some numbers once and stopped because they were genuinely depressing. The animals aren't the problem. The market that creates them is. One more thing worth saying. The whole alpha wolf concept that shaped dog training for 30 years was built on garbage data. The researcher who coined it, David Mech, spent decades trying to retract the framework. The original studies were done on captive packs. Unrelated wolves thrown together in an enclosure, forced to establish hierarchy through conflict. That's not how wild wolf packs work. Wild packs are family units. The alpha is just the breeding parent. There's no dominance contest because everyone's related, and the structure is cooperative, not competitive. Dominance theory in dog training came directly from misreading traumatized captive animals. Mech literally wrote a book called The Wolf: The Ecology and Behavior of an Endangered Species, and then spent the next 4 decades telling people to stop citing it. I don't know what to do with that information exactly. I find it quietly disturbing that an entire field of animal behavior got shaped by one flawed study on animals under duress, and we trained millions of dogs based on it. What wolves and dogs share is the origin. What separates them is everything that happened after. Every generation of dogs that chose human proximity over independence. Every mutation that made them softer, more readable, more attached to a species they had no biological reason to trust. Your dog isn't a tame wolf. It's something that doesn't exist anywhere in the wild. An animal that evolved specifically to live inside a human life, to read human faces, to want human company at a level wolves find genuinely alien. That Montana guy with the wolf? I think about him occasionally, not because the story's tragic, because he looked at that animal and saw something he wanted it to be, something easier and more romantic than what it actually was, and the wolf was just being a wolf the entire time.